Why the US dollar still controls the world. Every single day, billions of people around the world use money to buy goods, pay for services, and run entire economies. From small daily transactions, like buying food or paying for transportation, to massive international deals involving millions or even billions of dollars, money is constantly moving across borders. But what most people don't realize is that behind all of these transactions, there is one currency that quietly dominates the entire system: the US dollar. Even in countries that don't officially use it as their local currency, the dollar still plays a critical role behind the scenes. It influences trade, affects financial decisions, and shapes economic outcomes in ways most people never fully see. And this leads to a very important question. Why does the entire world still depend on one currency controlled by a single country? The US dollar is known as the world's reserve currency, and this concept is one of the most important reasons behind its global dominance. A reserve currency is a currency that central banks and governments hold in large quantities as part of their financial reserves. These reserves are not just stored for safety, but actively used to stabilize national currencies, support international trade, and respond to economic crises. When a country faces financial instability, having access to a strong and widely accepted currency like the US dollar can provide a level of security that other currencies cannot easily match. This is why many countries choose to hold dollars instead of relying solely on their own currencies. To truly understand how this system began, we need to look back at a critical moment in history. After World War II, much of the world was economically devastated. Infrastructure was destroyed, industries were weakened, and financial systems were unstable. The United States, however, emerged from the war in a much stronger position. It had a powerful industrial base, significant economic output, and large reserves of gold. In 1944, global leaders gathered to rebuild the international financial system, and they created an agreement that would shape the future of global finance. Under this system, many currencies were tied to the US dollar, and the dollar itself was backed by gold. This decision placed the United States at the center of the global economic system. This system, known as the Bretton Woods system, created a new global financial order where the US dollar became the anchor of international trade and finance. Countries relied on the dollar for stability, and global trade began to flow through it. Even after the gold standard was eventually abandoned in the 1970s, the influence of the dollar did not disappear. By that time, the global financial system had already been built around it. Banks, trade agreements, and financial institutions were deeply connected to the dollar, making it extremely difficult to replace. The system continued, not just because of policy, but because of the structure that had already been created. Today, the US dollar continues to dominate global trade in a way that reinforces its position every single day. A large percentage of international transactions are conducted in dollars, even when the United States is not directly involved in the trade. Commodities such as oil, gas, and metals are priced in dollars, meaning that countries must hold dollars in order to participate in the global market. This creates a situation where the dollar becomes a necessary tool for economic activity, not just within the United States, but across the entire world. As long as global trade depends on the dollar, its dominance remains secure. This system creates a powerful and self-reinforcing demand loop. Countries need dollars to trade, to repay international debt, and to maintain economic stability. Because of this need, they continue to hold large amounts of dollars. And because they hold dollars, the currency remains strong and widely used. This creates a cycle where the dollar's dominance feeds itself. The more it is used, the more necessary becomes. And the more necessary becomes, the harder it is to replace. This loop is one of the most important factors behind the long-term strength of the dollar. This system also gives significant influence to the Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States. When the Federal Reserve adjusts interest rates, it does not just affect the U.S. economy. It influences global capital flows, investment decisions, and financial markets around the world. Higher interest rates can attract investment into the United States, strengthening the dollar and pulling capital away from other countries. Lower interest rates can have the opposite effect. This means that decisions made within one country can have far-reaching consequences across the global economy. When the US dollar becomes stronger, the effects can be felt across multiple economies. Other currencies often weaken in comparison, making imports more expensive and increasing the cost of goods. This can lead to inflation, reduce purchasing power, and create economic challenges for many countries. These effects are often more severe in developing economies, where financial systems are less stable and more vulnerable to external pressures. In this way, the strength of the dollar can shape economic conditions far beyond the borders of the United States. Another important factor is global debt. Many countries and corporations borrow money, US dollars, because it is widely accepted and relatively stable. However, when the dollar strengthens, repaying that debt becomes more expensive. This creates financial pressure, reduces economic flexibility, and can slow down growth. In extreme cases, it can even contribute to financial crises. This is one of the hidden risks of a system where a single currency plays such a dominant role. In response to these risks, some countries have started exploring ways to reduce their dependence on the US dollar. This process is often referred to as de-dollarization. It includes efforts to trade using alternative currencies, build independent financial systems, and reduce reliance on dollar-based reserves. However, creating a new system is not simple. It requires trust, stability, and global acceptance, which are difficult to achieve on a large scale. The true strength of the US dollar does not come only from its value, but from the system built around it. Over decades, a global network of trade, finance, and trust has been developed. This network connects economies, supports transactions, and shapes how money moves around the world. Once a system like this becomes established, it becomes extremely difficult to replace because so many parts of the global economy depend on it. Through this system, the United States has a unique level of influence in global finance. Not through direct control, but through the structure of the system itself. Financial decisions made in the United States can influence markets, currencies, and economic conditions around the world. This creates a situation where the dollar is not just a currency, but a tool of influence within the global system. Even if countries want to move away from the US dollar, the transition would be extremely complex and risky. It would require coordination between multiple economies, the creation of new systems, and a high level of trust. For now, the existing system continues because it is deeply embedded in global finance and supported by decades of use and stability. Looking ahead, the future of the global financial system remains uncertain. New technologies such as digital currencies, changes in global power dynamics, and evolving economic relationships could eventually challenge the position of the US dollar. However, change on this scale takes time, and for now, the dollar continues to hold its position. So the next time you see the US dollar, remember that it represents more than just money. It represents a system that shapes the global economy, influences financial markets, and connects nations in ways that are not always visible. And the real question is, if this system ever changes, what will replace it, and how will it reshape the world?